Hi, I'm Stuart from the Norfolk Honey Company and welcome back to our very sunny and bright and warm university apiary, where we're here for the first time this spring to carry out some spring inspections. They're only going to be very quick, brief inspections. We want to just make sure that we've got a laying queen, and we're just going to go through all of the colonies just very quickly. We've done some inspections and lots of the bees are this spring building into really strong colonies, and we've been adding queen excluders and supers, and so we're probably going to do that here. We've found some colonies that have been building lots of comb under the roof, so we might find some of that as well. But generally it's just a quick inspection, a quick cleanup, add a queen excluder, add a super, and then move on to the next one. So we'll take the camera over to the furthest colony, have a look in there, and then we're going to work our way through all of the other colonies. So here we are, our first inspection of our first colony at our university apiary. I haven't taken the lid off yet, as you can see by it being stuck on. And this is what we've got under the roof. So they've started to build a little bit of comb. These are the fondant bags that had fondant in. This is the Apipasta fondant from Modern Beekeeping, or Happy Valley Honey, Paul at Happy Valley Honey. This has worked really well. The bees have done very nicely on that. So I'll just drop those out the front. I'll put a link to their website, to Paul's website. He's going to be at the BBKA Spring Convention, so if you get a chance to go along to the Spring Convention and see him, then do mention that you've seen his products in our videos. And the bees are really looking for more space now, so I think we've probably caught these just at the right time. One of the issues is that this particular colony doesn't have a dummy board in, so the bees have actually started to make comb down in this gap, which is too wide for them to just have another frame in, and we really need to make up some dummy boards so that we're not pulling brace comb and damaging bees. So we need to just clear this away down this side. I'll just give them some smoke. Just cut this away. And as ever in spring, there's always an amount of maintenance that's required before we get rolling into the new season. So just try and ease this out. This hive tool is from Bee Equipment here in the UK. It's got a really nice J section to it at the bottom, and it ends in a point so you can actually get into some of the cells. So Bee Equipment sell this particular hive tool, and they'll be at the Spring Convention as well if you're going. I'm just being a little bit cautious with this end frame because I don't want to do too much damage unnecessarily. And you can see that the bees are stacking away the nectar into this end frame, and they're obviously building lots of comb in the space that we've left for them, so we'll have to sort that out at some point. So let's just get in and have a look. Normally I wouldn't take a lot of time going through, but for the camera we'll just give you a little bit of a view of what's going on. So we've already got drones in here. We've got some drones, a couple of drones here. That's always good to see that the colonies have got a nice balance, and drones are really important to a colony for various reasons. So moving on to the next one. So we've got some capped brood, we've got open brood. I'm just going to check for eggs. I remembered to put my glasses on today, which is always good. And we've got eggs in some of the cells as well. So we've got eggs in here, and at the bottom here you can probably see we've got a rudimentary queen cup. That's the start of a queen cell, and the bees will make lots of those, and they, in my mind, they only become a queen cell once they've got eggs in them. And again, on this side we've got more rudimentary queen cups, but we've not got anything in. This bee in here is obviously preparing it for queen cell, but again, nothing in there. So it's fair to say that these colonies are in need of more space, and they are starting to think about preparations for swarming. Lots of brood emerging. We've got some brood here. There's a worker just trying to find a way out here. This bee actually has got a little bit of deformed wing, so we need to be mindful of that. But generally the bees are looking quite healthy. And we've got a great big rudimentary queen cup here. Again, nothing in that, so that's okay. Lots more brood. Bees are quite calm. No need to use lots of smoke. Another rudimentary queen cup. So here we've got lots of drone brood. So you can tell that it's drone brood because it's got this large dome shape to it. So up here we've got worker brood, and then further down here you can see this much larger domed shaped brood, and that's drone brood. Again, on the other side we've got another rudimentary queen cup, nothing in it. So this colony is expanding well. Once all of that sealed brood emerges, we're going to have a lot of new bees in the colony, and they will increase the number of bees dramatically, and we're going to have to give them more space. So we will be putting a queen excluder and a super on this colony today. As I'm looking down on the frame, I'm actually looking at the bees, I'm looking at the wings, I'm looking at the body shape, checking that the bees all look nice and healthy. One of the problems that we have had with a colony is chronic bee paralysis virus, and so I'm checking to make sure that we've got no symptoms, signs of symptoms of that. Two more queen cups there, but they're rudimentary queen cups with no eggs in them. I'm just getting towards the end of our brood nest now. So this colony has an extended brood nest. It's got lots of brood in it. So they are obviously thinking it's time to start practicing on making queen cells, and I would imagine in a couple of weeks' time we'd definitely be seeing queen cells if we didn't give them more space. So this one we do need to be careful with and just keep an eye out just to make sure that we give them enough room so that they don't swarm. No guarantees, of course. There's always a chance that they might go on to swarm, but we'll do our best to prevent that. Again, the queen has laid lots of eggs in that area. Another frame of brood on this side. So these are looking really good, really strong. Just wiggle this frame in place just to prevent us from crushing bees. And then onto the last frame. This one has stuck the frame to the end wall, so we'll just have a look down this edge, and you will find this with frames occasionally that are at the edge. The bees will stick it to the outside wall of the hive, and you end up with a bit of a mess like this. So we'll look to replace some of these outside frames as we get further into the season. And again, on this side you can see that we've got rudimentary queen cups here. Nothing in that one, nothing in that one, and nothing in that one. But these bees are moving towards that swarming instinct. Haven't seen the queen, but that's really not an issue for us. We're not worried about spotting the queen today. We're just very keen to make sure that we've got a good brood pattern, plenty of eggs, which we've got here. So now to just move all the frames across, I'm just going to use my hive tool at this end and move them all at the same time. And that way you avoid crushing too many bees. You obviously don't want to crush any bees, but there are always one or two casualties as we go through. Again, I won't do anything with this end frame. We're going to leave this until we come back and do our spring clean. And when we do our spring clean, then we'll remove this frame, certainly cut out all of the comb that's being built on the edges there. In fact, if I cut this off now, I can show you what the bees have done. So let's just take some of this comb off, and you can see that these are drone cells. So if we allowed them to continue with this, we'd probably find the queen will lay drones into those. So those are unfertilized eggs. So we just cut that off, and that comb hopefully the bees can use. So we'll just drop that one back in. Remove our waste. I've got a bucket over there for all of the waste. Just pop that on the floor for now. And then what I need to do is to just clean the top. So we'll just smoke it quite heavily across the top, not down into the frames, but just across the top, because we want to just move the bees off. I'm just looking to take the bees off here so that we don't kill them. And then we're just going to scrape across the top, just gently, just to move the bees. If there are any bees there, just knocking them out of the way as we go. Because if we clean this up now, then it will be less of a problem for us when we put the queen excluder on. Okay, so that will be okay for now. We'll just one or two little bits there, just get rid of those. And now we can pop the queen excluder on, which I've got here. So this is a single-sided queen excluder. It's got a recess on one side and it's flat across the other side. And we use a bottom bee space, so we want this recess to be down on the frames, and that allows the bees to come up and it doesn't crush any bees when we put it down onto the frames. I always put the wires across the frames. It's just because that's the way I've always done it. I don't think it matters one way or the other. It's just a matter of habit. And then we've got a super and this super is one that we had last year that's already drawn, so the bees don't have to come up into foundation to draw this. Just give it a quick clean across the top, and the bees now can come straight up into this super and give the cells a clean, and then use that without having to waste their energy on producing wax. They need to clean the crown board, the cover board. You can see there's lots of wax on this. I will just get my bucket. It's just a honey bucket that I use because we've got lots of waste today. And then I'm just going to scrape the wax off the crown board and into the bucket. Don't have to worry too much about it because we're going to be swapping these out when we do the spring clean. We do just want to get rid of as much of this as we can. One or two bees in here, so we'll just try and ease them out of the way. Remember to pick up all of your waste, don't leave it lying around in the apiary, keep everything tidy, and that will help prevent robbing, it will help prevent spreading of diseases. That will be fine for now, so then our crown board can go back on top. Pop the lid on the waste bucket so the bees don't get into it. Pick up any waste that's down on the floor. Just give the roof a tap to knock the bees out. And we have got a little bit of wax in the top here, a little bit of comb that's been built into the roof space. So we'll just take that out as well. And that can then go in our waste bucket. So that's queen number 28. Pick up the bags of empty apipasta fondant, and that's our inspection complete with the addition of the queen excluder and the super. So that's our first inspection completed. We're going to continue with some additional inspections now. Don't forget between inspections to make sure that you give yourself a scrub down to get rid of all the propolis, because that just gets in the way, and clean your hive tools because again they'll get gummed up with lots of propolis. I have several different hive tools. That one from Bee Equipment I find to be one of the better ones, but this is a slightly different J tool with a blunt end. I'll use this one on the next inspection. So we're going to take a look at a nucleus colony next by way of something different for you to see. and we'll just see whether the queen is okay. I'm just going to get some more fuel. We just need to make sure that the smoker is kept well alight. This is the lichen that I've mentioned before. It works really well in the smoker. What I do is I just crush it down. It's quite airy, there's lots of air spaces in it, so it burns quite quickly if you don't crush it down. But it has a really nice smell to it. It's not a nasty smell, very kind of almost natural smell. And it smoulders and burns well in the smoker, so it stays alight for a long period. So let's go and have a look at this nuke and see where we're at with these. So we've got our colony here. On the roof I've actually written number 68, which I think is the queen identifier, but also CBPV question mark. I think that this colony may have had 1 or 2 bees that were showing signs of chronic bee paralysis virus. So immediately I'm thinking that we'll have a look as we go through. We'll just make sure that they're okay and that they haven't succumbed to chronic bee paralysis virus. So a little bit of smoke at the entrance, then give our smoker a quick puff just to make sure that it's alight, and then we can take the roof off. And again, this colony, this apipasta fondant has been really fantastic for us this year. I did buy in a pallet of apipasta because it was doing so well. The samples that Paul sent me were great, so I bought in a load. So just looking down at these bees, I'm immediately thinking chronic bee paralysis virus. There are no signs here, fortunately. They all look healthy bees, so at the moment I'm feeling relaxed about the whole chronic bee paralysis virus issue. So all of the nukes that we've got are overwintered nukes. We've got some that are being sold as overwintered nukes, but the demand for them easily outstripped the number that we produced this year, so maybe this coming season will produce more. But this colony is going to be one that we'll keep because there was that risk of chronic bee paralysis virus. The crown board is just broken, so we're going to have a replacement crown board made. So as I was saying, we need to repair the crown board, but these bees will go into, provided they're healthy, these bees will go into a full-size hive at some point, and then we can get this colony sorted and then take the box away and give everything a good clean. So okay, in my mind I'm thinking chronic bee paralysis virus. I'm looking to see if we've got any chronic bee paralysis virus, and the one thing I would say immediately is that we've got a bee here that is being paid a lot of attention by one of the workers. Now, I don't know whether that's because it's got a problem. It's not completely shiny, it's not shaking, it's not twitching, but it potentially may have an issue. So we're going to just keep an eye on this colony as we go forward. But if you've seen the other chronic bee paralysis virus videos, you will have seen that intense shaking that the colony had, and at the moment I think we're okay. So nice slab of brood here. I can see larvae, I can see eggs, so the queen is doing okay. Again, we don't have that horrible shaking. I don't see any type 2 bees, those are the black shiny bees. So at the moment I think they may be okay. So we'll cross our fingers. We'll get them into a full-size hive fairly quickly. I did speak with Giles Budge from Newcastle University, who was saying he believed that bees in cramped conditions would struggle with chronic bee paralysis virus. If they've got the virus, then it would spread quite quickly, potentially because of the proximity and the cramped space. So by giving them extra room and putting them into a full-size hive as soon as possible, it will give them the extra room that perhaps they need, and that will allow them to build up. You can see that some of the bees are shaking, but that's more, let's see if we can see one. There we go. This one is actually communicating rather than shaking because it's got a virus. It's really interesting behaviour just watching these bees. Who knows what that bee is trying to say. Again, just be careful when you put the frames back together again, that you're not crushing lots of bees in between the wax. Here we've got our queen in the bottom of the frame. Lots of brood in this frame. Again, the bees are looking quite healthy. Nice and calm on the comb. So hopefully they'll build up into a good colony, and we'll be able to get some honey off them this year. Just going to give them a little bit of smoke just to get them away from that top edge. And again, this frame has caught on the side wall of the box and has torn, well, you can see the mess this frame's in, so we'll need to replace this frame at some point in the not too distant future. Perhaps at the point that we swap them out, we'll just remove this frame completely, put them into a full-size hive, and they'll go into a full-size hive with 4 frames rather than 5. Okay, so we'll close these up. The next colony I'd like to show you is one that we under-supered. It's still under-supered, so I've not had a look at them as yet. So we'll have a look and see what kind of condition they're in. And I'll show you what I do to move them from their under-supered position to a more standard position. So here we've got our colony that has been under-supered all winter. Now that means that we've got our super beneath the brood box. There's no queen excluder here. So we've got our floor, our super, brood box, crime board, and then roof. So I've not opened them up. I don't know what we're going to encounter. There's lots of pollen going in. It's quite possible that the queen has come down into the super and is laying eggs in the super. Who knows? We'll open them up and have a look, and then I'll show you the process that I follow. Regardless of what we find, we'll go through exactly how I will deal with this colony as it is, regardless of the state of the colony inside. So we'll bring the camera in closer, and then I'll open them up and we'll have a look. Okay, so I've given them a little bit of smoke. I'll take the roof off. First thing to say is there's plenty of ants running around. They seem to like this fondant as well, apipasta. A lot of these bags are coming off the colonies completely empty. The bees have really taken to that, so I shall be using that a lot more in the future. Again, quick look down at the bees that we've got in here. They look fine, they look healthy, all looking well. So the first thing to do is to just pop off the crime board. Just going to have a quick look at what we've got across here. Bees fully across. Actually the dummy board is at the other end, so I would normally inspect from the side closest to the camera, but we'll we'll inspect as we go across here. But what I'm going to do is to just go straight down to the super first. So just wanted to check underneath there. You'll notice there's not lots of brace comb above the crown board and into the roof like we've had in other colonies, so having that super in there has given them a bit of extra room. So we're just going to split them apart and get my hands underneath the front, twist and lift, and then I can lower this down at the front, so that's nicely settled on the roof, not on the floor. I've just got it down. So what I'm looking for now is brood. I can look down into this super at an angle and see whether there's any brood in there, and that will let me know if the queen has been really active down in the bottom here. The other thing that I'm noticing is that these are drone foundation, so what we've actually got here is lots and lots of drone brood. So the queen has been down, and because this was unfortunately a super that I'd put drone foundation in, she's actually been down and laid eggs in these cells. Those cells are drone cells, and so they're unfertilized eggs, and we're going to have a plethora of drones that are going to emerge from these cells. That's not a problem. I think this is one of our better colonies anyway, so if we've got extra drones going out to mate, then maybe the genetics from this colony will get passed on all the more faster. So there is a question now as to whether or not the queen is actually down here in this super. So we just need to be careful that when we swap them over, we're not actually putting the super on top of the queen excluder with the queen trapped above the brood box. So the next thing to do is to just take this off. So I'm just going to pop the back open, lift it off, and set it on its side on the floor. A quick look at the floor here. We've got a drone larvae here, unfortunately, that has fallen out of its cell, so the local birds can have that. But other than that, this is fairly clean. So next job is to bring the brood box back onto the floor. We just knock some of those bees out of the way, and then we can lift up the brood box, just walk it over. It's actually not that heavy at the moment. You could always get someone to give you a helping hand. Just make sure that we haven't squished lots of bees. Lots of pollen coming in, lots of really nice bright yellow pollen from the willows, but also pollen from other plants as well, different colours. So pop the crown board down. I'm just going to lift this super and just pop it on the roof. So we've got that set to one side. So now we can just go through and inspect the brood box. I'm going to do this and look for the queen. I want to see if I can find the queen now, because if we've got the queen here, we then don't have to worry about what's going on with the super. Very gently. This one's got as I said, the dummy boards at that end, so I would normally start inspecting at that end. So we'll have a look. Lots of pollen. You can see the pollen hopefully that's in that frame. So we'll just ease that one against the front of the hive. Bees generally have been very good. They're not particularly defensive. They seem fairly happy to just amble around. So on this frame we've got lots of eggs. We've also got rudimentary queen cups. Maybe like that first colony that we looked at, maybe these are just lots of rudimentary cups, because the season has started really early. On this side, again, we've got lots of eggs. I did remember to put my glasses on today, you'll be thrilled to know, so I can actually see what's going on. So we're going to try not to use too much smoke because I don't want to drive the queen off the frames and onto the side wall. Bees looking healthy. You can see actually that there's quite a bit of ivy around the edge of the frame here, so that would have been quite difficult for the bees over winter to be able to utilise because it's set solid. So what can we do with the super that's actually got lots of drone brood in it now? Well, if you happen to be wanting to raise queens and this is one of the colonies that you want to have as a drone colony, so that's a colony that is going to provide the male bees to mate with the virgin queens because you like the traits of this colony, you could just simply use it as a brood and a half and leave those frames on top to further develop into fully matured drones. If you didn't want to do that, another option for you is simply to shake the bees off and to take it away, clean it up and pop it into the freezer and kill off all the drones. But possibly a better use for it would be to just leave it in the colony until the drones have been capped and then take it off, because you can then, if you've got any varroa mites in the colony, you can actually trap some of the varroa in the drone cells. The varroa will preferentially seek out the drone cells, and as we don't appear to have any drone cells in the brood box, hopefully you'd trap any varroa that you've got in the colony, you'd trap them in those drone cells. But we did treat over winter with the oxalic acid, so we're fairly low on varroa. So here we've got our queen. She's got a red dot, and just interestingly we've got some very nice looking red pollen in one of the cells here, lots of yellow pollen. So I'm really pleased that we've found the queen, because we can now not worry about the fact that she might get trapped in the super above. So it's nice to actually have her. That's a straightforward inspection now. We don't have to worry quite so much. Lots of bees, lots of sealed brood. We'll pop this frame back in nice and gently because we don't want to damage the queen that's on there. So I will just go through the rest of the frames here just to show you what we've got. More eggs, more brood, so brood in all stages on both sides. So on this one we have got some drone brood along the bottom. So again, for those of you that are unfamiliar with drone brood, you can see this raised area of cells compared to this patch of worker brood, which is the fertilized eggs. The female workers will emerge from those cells. And again, there's a small amount on the reverse side. And then we're into stores. We've got some liquid stores up here, but then towards the edge we've got this ivy which sets solid. But as the day temperatures warm up, that will become softer and the bees will be able to use it. So we're through the worst of the weather now in terms of very, very low temperatures, although we will get some colder days. I think next week is supposed to be quite cool. It's not going to be, hopefully, I'm not talking it up, but I don't think we're going to see a beast from the east descending. If we do, then you'll have to blame me for that, and I apologise in advance. So that's just got some nectar stores in it and more ivy. We'll get that back in place. So again, I move all of the frames back so that I don't have to move them individually. It saves me time, but it also stops crushing bees. I don't want to push it all the way to the edge. I need to leave a gap because we've got the dummy board in there, and that will actually end up crushing a lot of bees. And this one, because we're going to have to pop it in here, we don't want to push it in with all these bees on, because we're going to roll bees and we're going to upset bees, we're going to make them angry, we'll end up injuring and killing bees, and that's just not good practice. So we just gently shake them off onto the top of the frames, and then the frame without any bees on can slide nice and gently back in. But I now need to move them back to fill in this gap, so I just pop my hive tool in here and just ease it so that the frames are all pushed nice and tightly back across to this side. Right, so now we've got a situation where we've got a normal brood box, the queen is in here, we can simply put our queen excluder on top. So we can pop our queen excluder on top here. And one of the things to remember, of course, is because we've got this box which has got drone cells in it now, you need to remember that as you go through, if I just pull one of these out, we haven't yet got any sealed brood, but what will happen is that if these drones emerge, they're going to get stuck above the queen excluder. So you have to make a decision about what you're going to do, and remember that if you're going to allow the drones to emerge, then you need to shake the bees out by taking the queen excluder away, and then shake the drones that have emerged out of this box back down into the bottom box. Otherwise they'll get stuck at the top and then they'll die. So I'm going to leave this particular box here so that we've got those drones coming along, but because the bees are filling up quite nicely with, let's just move that, with stores, you can see these outside frames are still empty. So there is an option of adding an additional super if they'd been kind of filling this lot up with stores and the brood was obscuring the area for them to fill. But there's enough room here for at least another week, so the bees can fill up these outside frames with honey now. The queen can't get back up here, so she can't lay any more eggs in here, so all they can do is to store nectar and convert it into honey in these outside cells. So that's it. We won't put another super on them this week. I'll just clean up a little bit of this comb. The bees are actually pretty relaxed. We've not used a great deal of smoke on them, so I'm tempted to use these this colony as a drone donor, and we'll see how we get on. Although the queen was actually quite light, so I have a tendency to prefer a darker queen. So we'll make a decision once I've had a chance to sit down with a cup of coffee. So all that remains is for us to pop the crime board back on and just knock the bees off. I'll just give this a quick scrape into our waste bucket. So I've just scraped off the wax that was on the top there, and then just put it on at an angle, give it a wiggle across, and hopefully we don't trap too many bees. And there's our inspection. We've reverted back to floor, brood box, queen excluder, super on top. It's hive number 62, so we know that hive number 62 is one to keep an eye out for those drones. We'll make a note of that, and we can carry on with our inspections. Okay, so that's our 3 different inspections. We've carried out that first inspection, the nucleus colony, which looks actually okay. I still have a question mark as to whether chronic bee paralysis virus might be a problem in there, so we'll just keep an eye on those. And then that final colony, Billy Connolly, and that final colony, we've now moved the super above the queen excluder, but we've got drone brood in there, so we'll need to keep an eye on those as we go through the coming weeks, just to make sure that they don't get stuck in the super. If you've got any questions, please do pop them below the video. I hope you enjoyed that. I wish you the very best of seasons this year, wherever you may be. I think the start of the season is looking really fabulous. The bees are really strong, and as usual, I'm full of optimism for this coming year. Thank you for your support, and we'll catch up next time. Thanks for watching.